everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Thobekile. In this video, I'm going to be sharing about an effective way of working around our insecurities. Now, what makes a person secure is when they know that they are truly valuable for who they are. And most of the times, insecurities tend to arise when a person has a little or no sense of that value in themselves. Now, when we are dealing with insecurities, we have to start by having a right estimation, a correct estimation of who we truly are as individuals, as a person, independent of anything that we have, independent of things that we own or things that we do. And what determines a value of a thing is really what someone is willing to pay for that thing. And for you and I, whether we know it or not, whether we believe it or not, God has put a priceless tag on us as individuals, and He has demonstrated this by what He was willing to part with. It says in His word that, He who did not spare His own Son for you and I, and this is how much we are truly worth. We are so valuable before God. We are so important before God. And I know this sometimes is so hard to believe because society has created this concept of, that there are VIPs, in our societies. They're very important persons, and normally they're defined by status, their core, their power, and the influence that they have. But men, this is men's idea, and we don't have to live bound by that concept. So what? We don't have a well-off background. So what? We don't have a lot of money. Men, we have to have that inherent knowledge that we are valuable before God, independent of any of those factors or any of those concepts that man has defined as valuable or man has defined as worthy. So it's something that you should keep reminding ourselves that, you are good. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of respect. You are worthy of honor. You are literally God's masterpiece. He says in His word that you are His beloved. And I think the more we remind ourselves of this truth, the more we understand who we are and how God sees us, that will really reinstate and restore the value that we have as individuals. So most of the times, insecurities, they manifest themselves in that sense of helplessness that you feel when you are faced with a problem, or sometimes it's that feeling of incompetence, inadequacy, or that sense of, being unacceptable or rejected or unapproved. Now, the thing is, when you know who you are, when you know who God says you are, we don't have to agree with those thoughts that tell us we are less than, that tell us we can't do things, that are in our hearts. The reason why I want to emphasize this point is because I know that in many cases, some insecurities that we experience or things that we feel, they have a lot of solid, evidence, around us. And that's why it's so important. I'm always stressing this point of, let us get in the Word and really know what value God has ascribed on us, how God sees us. Because it's only when we're getting in the Word that we are literally building up a case against those thoughts, that tell you you're less than, that tell you, you are flawed or you're not good enough. It's only in the Word that will build up a case to disprove the evidence that we're seeing, around us. And personally, I used to have lots of insecurities, but I don't think people who knew me like 10, 15 years ago would have ever described me as an insecure person. You know why? I think because, like many, I was so good at hiding my insecurities. But the good thing is that we don't have to hide. We don't have to hide. We don't have to live, behind a mask or feel like we have to present ourselves in a filtered way. So for me personally, the change came when I started to see how God sees me, and I started to agree with what God really says about me, what He sees, the value that I am worth in His eyes. And the more I started to align myself with that truth, the more I started to feel free to be me and honestly to explore, my journey, with God. And I don't need to pretend to be anybody else that I'm not. I don't need to try to be a different version of who I really am. I have given myself that liberty to be free, to be an original. So if our insecurities are not dealt with, they can easily develop into a faulty belief system, and that will affect every aspect of our lives. So that is why I'm encouraging you to start dealing with your insecurities by really understanding the value that you have as an individual, independent of everything else that you have, that you own, or that you do. And let's come more into agreement with what the Word of God really says you are. Remind yourself of that truth, especially on those days when insecurities are trying to manifest in your life. Otherwise, thank you so much, guys, for tuning into this one. And if you liked this kind of content, be sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And in the next video, we're going to be sharing a little bit more about, how insecurities normally manifest themselves in our lives.